Hello my dear friends, welcome you all back again to the revision videos. Already I shared you 2-3 revision videos before itself. Now this is the next revision video on the concept of value of supply, and I'm going to take 2 revision videos on value of supply. With this video, what I'm talking with you right now will cover section 15, the value of supply, and I'll take another revision video especially for valuation rules of rule 27 to rule 35. That's what we'll do. I'm splitting into 2 videos for the sake of convenience and for complete understanding. Now let me tell you my dear friends, in this particular video, I'll talk in relation to section 15, and section 15 is one such section which generally keeps coming in the exam for 4 to 6 marks. And almost every time we are seeing a question in the exam from the concept of value of supply. And section 15 is something which is so very common, which keeps coming in the exam. So let me take you through this section 15 so that we'll completely revise and recall once what you have learnt and become perfect in section 15. As I told you already, the objective of the revision videos is very clear. Objective number 1, whatever concepts we are perfect with, we should revise once again to become extremely perfect. And if there is some concept what we are not perfect with, or there is some gaps in terms of understanding the concept, or there is some gap in terms of the conceptual understanding or anything, that gap should be filled by this revision videos. That is the whole idea of revising all the concepts with you once again. Come on. So let me revise once quickly. Value of supply. Let me tell you my dear friends that this concept of value of supply is dealt by a beautiful section called section 15. Friends, it is very important that at CA final level in the exam, you write the answer along with section number. If section number is not there, then definitely they are deducting marks in reality. So let me tell you very clearly that I really want you to write the answer in the exam along with section number. So please make sure that you write the answer along with section number. No compromise at all. Come on. So value of supply concept is dealt by section 15. And this is divided into 5 subsections: 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 15.4, and last one 15.5. And my dear friends, 15.1 says value of supply shall mean transaction value. I repeat one more time, value of supply shall mean what value? Transaction value. And generally what is transaction value? For example, if we go to a cloth store and buy a shirt at a price of 1000 rupees, so the transaction value of this shirt is nothing but 1000 rupees. That is why my dear friends, we say that transaction value, that is price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related. I repeat one more time. 15.1 says value of supply shall mean transaction value, that is price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related, and price is sole consideration. So 15.1 says value of supply shall mean transaction value, that is price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related and the price is sole consideration. Next. So basically what does that mean? The logic of the point is very clear that we are going to take that price into picture where supplier and recipient are not related, because if they are related persons, generally we say that the price will be affected price. So we want the price in case where supplier and recipient are not related. That is why technically in income tax also, in accounting perspective also, we use the word known as arm's length price. What do we use the word? Arm's length price. So what is the meaning, my dear friends? Value of supply shall mean transaction value, that is price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related and the price is sole consideration. That means price is the only consideration. There is no other consideration at all. See, for example, let's say Shivateja is doing audit of a particular client. When I'm doing audit of a particular client will definitely pay me fees, audit fees we call it. So that is nothing but consideration for the service what I have given to the client. So imagine a case where apart from fees, let's say the fees is 10 lakhs, but client is telling, sir, I'll do one thing, I will not pay you 10 lakhs fees, I'll pay you only 6 lakh fees, and I'll also give you one car. So that means there is some consideration which is in non-monetary form. And let me tell you, under GST law, as per section 231, which defines consideration, it clearly says consideration could be monetary form or non-monetary form. So it's not necessary that consideration should be monetary form only. It can be monetary form or non-monetary form. Come on. So value of supply shall mean what value? Transaction value. That is price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related, and the price is sole consideration. Sole consideration means only consideration. Next, one doubt can come in your brain, sir, what if price is not the only consideration? There is some non-monetary consideration also. That is why there is one section called 15.4 which says that if TV is not acceptable, when I say TV stands for transaction value. Exactly. If transaction value is not acceptable, then my dear friends, let me tell you what will happen is, law just told, refer to rules. I repeat one more time, my dear friends, if transaction value is not acceptable, it just says refer to rules, and we have got some good number of rules like rule 27 to rule 35. There we have got so many points to talk in detail that we'll talk in detail. Don't worry, I'll revise that points also for you in a separate video. Come on. So 15.4 says what? If the transaction value is not acceptable, we'll go to rules. Now, my dear friends, in simple terms, when is the transaction value not acceptable? Apply common sense. That could be a case where supplier and recipient are related, or it could be a case where supplier recipient are not related, but price is not the sole consideration. Correct, right? Because there could be a case where supplier and recipient are related. Supplier and recipient are related. That could be one possibility. Other possibility is supplier and recipient are not related, but price is not the sole consideration. So there could be consideration in non-monetary form also. For that we have got valuation rules which we'll talk. Then 15.5 also let me complete. 15.5 says, in case of certain notified supplies, in case of certain what, my dear friends? Notified supplies. We have got some good number of notified supplies like money changing, air travel agent, life insurance, second-hand goods, vouchers. All these are given by Rule 32, for which we have got special valuation rules. That is why I am writing the word refer to rules. So 15.4 says what? If transaction value is not acceptable, we'll go to rules. 15.5 says, in case of certain notified supplies, we'll always go to rules. And the notified supplies, what we have, let me tell you, my dear friends, air travel agent, life insurance, second-hand goods, vouchers, money changing activity. Like this, there are certain notified supplies given by Rule 32. In that Rule 32, we need to talk in detail. What are the points covered in notified supplies? That also I'll revise for you in the rules revision video. Then, what is that we are going to talk in this video is 15.2 and 15.3. And let me tell you, my dear friends, 15.2 talks about inclusions to transaction value. 15.3 talks about exclusions from transaction value. So basically we are trying to spend some time on what are all included in transaction value and then what are all excluded from transaction value. That's important to know. And generally a question is coming in exam as to what all we will add to transaction value, what all we will reduce to the transaction value. On this basis, a question is coming in the exam. So students should have a clarity of thought on how do we answer this point. Clear? Come on. So 15.2 is what? Inclusions to transaction value. 15.3 is what? Exclusions from transaction value. See that, come on. When I say 15.2, which deals with what, my dear friends? Inclusions to transaction value. That means what all we will add to the transaction value. In this we have got 15.2a. 15.2b, 15.2c, 15(2)D, and finally last one 15(2)E, my dear friends. So basically there are 5 clauses in 15(2), my dear friends. If you learn these 5 points, story is over. Come on. And let me tell you friends, 15(2)A says all taxes, duties, cess, fee charged by supplier from recipient. Come on, what is that language I wrote there? All taxes, duties, cess, fees charged by supplier from recipient. For example, my dear friends, let me give a situation here. Let's say there is a person known as Shivateja. Shivateja is a owner of a property. I have given one property on rent to one person known as Mr. Raviteja. From Raviteja, what is Shivateja taking? Rent. Now, we all know that there is some tax called municipal tax, which every owner of the property is required to pay to the government on yearly basis. And municipal tax is a percentage of municipal value. And we are required to pay that municipal tax to the state authorities. Now, in my example, Shivateja owns a property and Shivateja has given that property on rent to Mr. Raviteja. Now, my question to you is very straightforward question. Who is the owner of the property? Owner of the property is nothing but Shivateja. Who is the tenant? The tenant of the property is nothing but Raviteja. Now, my dear friends, let me ask you one straight question. Who is supposed to pay municipal tax to the government? Shivateja is supposed to pay municipal tax to the government. But what Shivateja has done is, Shivateja has collected that amount of municipal tax from the tenant. Shivateja has collected that amount of municipal tax from the tenant. Who was supposed to pay that municipal tax? Shivateja. But Shivateja has taken that municipal tax amount from the tenant. That means, assume for a second, if the rent is 10 lakhs per annum and the municipal tax is 1 lakh rupees. Now actually I am supposed to take from the tenant only 10 lakh rupees. But what I have done is, I have taken from tenant 11 lakh rupees. That means municipal tax, what I should pay to the government, I have taken from tenant only. So I have taken from the tenant 11 lakh rupees. Now question arose whether GST will come on 11 lakhs or on 10 lakhs. So obviously GST will come on 11 lakhs because 15(2)A clearly says all taxes, duties, cess, fees charged by the supplier from the recipient will be included in the value of supply. Very interesting point. But in this context, my dear friends, one interesting clarificatory point, let me tell you. That is, they clarified that TCS charged by, and when I say TCS, I am talking about TCS under income tax law. Example for that, my dear friends, in income tax, whenever there is a sale of motor vehicle more than 10 lakh rupees, they collect 1% as TCS. So what clarification they have given is that TCS charged by supplier from recipient is not included in value of supply, since it is an interim levy. Since it is what levy? An interim levy. Interim levy means only for the time being. Since it is an interim levy, I repeat one more time, since it is an interim levy not having character of tax. Come on, very interesting clarification what they have given. Come on, what did they clarify, my dear friends? TCS charged by supplier from the recipient is not included in the value of supply since it is an interim levy which is not having character of tax. Obviously common sense point, because for example, when a car is sold for 20 lakh rupees, the car dealer will also collect 1% as TCS under income tax law. That 1% collected by car dealer and paid to the government will again become TCS credit to the recipient. So that is why they clarified that it is only an interim levy which is not having the character of tax. It's a brilliant clarification given by CBIC. CBIC is of course Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Come on. Going back. So what is 15(2)(a talking about? 15(2)(a talks about all taxes, duties, cess, fee charged by supplier from recipient. I hope you are able to recollect. Come on guys, let's revise. Then 15(2)(b says supplier's obligation in relation to supply is met by the recipient. It's a great point actually and very popular point. What is this line? Supplier's obligation. Whose obligation? Supplier's obligation in relation to supply is met by recipient. That means what? For example, my dear friends, let's say you purchased my classes. When you purchase my classes, assume for a second you have paid some price of 10,000 rupees. Example. Now the 10,000 price what you have paid is basically for what? The 10,000 price. Okay, let's say 5,000. Example sake, no worries. Let's say 5,000. 5,000 rupees what you are paying is for the video as well as books what you are going to get. It's for combined together as a package. Of course, in that principal supply is the class what I am going to take. But let's say if I tell you, my dear student, you are paying me 5,000, but out of that 5,000, 1,000 directly I am paying from pocket to the book person who's printing the books. So I told you, my dear student, do one thing, pay me only 4,000 and pay 1,000 directly to the book shopkeeper. Now my question to you, it is whose obligation to give books to the student? Shiva Teja's obligation, supplier obligation. But it is met by whom? It is met by student. So definitely, even though I collected only 4,000 from you, still the value of supply will be 5,000 because supplier's obligation in relation to supply met by recipient is included in the value of supply. So even though I collected 4,000 from you, value of supply will still be 5,000 because you paid 1,000 to somebody on my behalf. Now you might ask, so practically how will they get to know? They'll get to know because that book shopkeeper gave a bill of the 1,000 on my name. The book shopkeeper gave a bill of 1,000 on my name. And for that 1,000 bill what he gave on my name, you made the payment. That is why practically it is possible to trace. Of course, you might get one doubt in brain now, sir, what if practically shopkeeper is not giving bill on Shiva Teja surname, but shopkeeper is giving bill on student name only and student is paying directly? Then practically it is not possible to prove that it is supplier's obligation. Definitely, practically it has to be proved. Anyways, in exam, when they give a question telling supplier's obligation is met by recipient, directly you add, because in exam, please don't question the question. Only answer the question, because what we want is not the question, what we want is only the answer. Next, 15(2)(b is supplier's obligation in relation to supply met by recipient. Then 15(2)(c, all incidental expenses or anything charged by supplier from recipient. It's an interesting point. Come on, what is the line I wrote there? All incidental expenses, all related expenses basically, or anything whatever is charged by supplier from recipient. For example, something like packing charges, installation charges, weighing charges, any kind of charges, design charges, all these kind of special charges collected by supplier from recipient, that will include, no doubt about it. Then 15(2)(d, any interest, late fee or penalty charged by supplier from recipient. So if you observe, everywhere I am using the word charged by supplier from recipient, obviously because supplier should collect that amount, only then we will add. So what is the line we use there? Any interest, late fee, penalty. One example, I myself have seen this. Yeah, listen. Sir, one company is there. Company is providing some service to a client and they gave a bill for 1 lakh rupees. and the bill only they mentioned that the payment of this 1 lakh should be made within 30 days. But in case this 1 lakh is not paid within 30 days, then company will collect additional 10,000. I repeat one more time. In case the customer doesn't pay 1 lakh within 30 days, company will collect additional 10,000. That means company is going to collect 1 lakh 10,000. Clear, right? Now in this context, my dear friends, will GST come on 1 lakh or GST will come on 1 lakh 10,000? 100% GST will come on 1 lakh 10,000, because any interest, late fees or penalty which is charged by supplier from recipient, that will be included in the value of supply. And in this context, one more interesting point to be noted is that practically, and of course for exam perspective also, we always treat this interest, late fees and penalty as inclusive of GST. I repeat one more time, practically and of course for exam purpose, we treat this interest, late fees and penalty as inclusive of GST. That means if the amount collected is 10,000 and GST is 18%, and that 10,000 we are treating as if it is including GST. That means what is the GST amount? 10,000 into 18 by 118. That becomes the GST component. No doubt in that. Come on. Next. Last point, 15(2)(e). Any subsidy linked to price except subsidy from central government or state government. What a brilliant point, my dear friends. What is the line I wrote there? Any subsidy linked to the price. So if supplier gets any subsidy, then finish. That subsidy, we will add it to the value of supply. Of course, we will not add it to the value of supply if subsidy is coming from central government or state government. That point is always there, that they use the word any subsidy linked to the price except subsidy from central government or state government. That means in general, subsidies will be included in the value of supply. However, we will not include if it is received from central government or state government. Very clear cut point, no doubt in this. Make sense, right? Very good. That's the story of 15(2), which deals with the concept of inclusions to transaction value. I'm sure you had a quick revision of all these points. 15(2)(a) talks about all taxes, duties, cess, fees charged by supplier from recipient. 15(2)(b) talks about supplier's obligation in relation to supply met by recipient. 15(2)(c) talks about all incidental expenses or anything charged by supplier from recipient. 15(2)(d) says any interest, late fees, penalty charged by supplier from recipient. 15(2)(e) says any subsidy linked to the price except subsidy from central government or state government. That's it. This is the story of 15(2), which deals with the concept of inclusions to transaction value. That means what all we will add to that transaction value. Keep in mind, very important. So let me complete this story by once revising 15(3) also, so that we'll be done with the story of section 15, value of supply. And as we know, 15(3) talks about exclusions from transaction value. And let me tell you friends, in 15(3) we have got section 15(3)(a) and section 15(3)(b. Unlike 15(2), 5 points, here we have only 2 points and very simple. First point is actually very, very simple. First point talks about discount recorded in the invoice. Discount recorded in the invoice means what? See, for example, I have to provide some service to the client, okay? And I told the client, sir, the bill is 50,000. But he requested. I told, okay, sir, I'll give 5,000 discount. When I gave a bill, I have shown original price 50,000, less discount 5,000, net figure 45,000. Now question is, will GST come on 45,000 or 50,000? GST will definitely come on 45,000. That's because GST will come on the price after discount. But here you need to keep in mind that law never ever told that discount covers cash discount, trade discount, quantity discount, turnover discount. They did not ever talk about that type of discount. The only thing what they told is that discount recorded in the invoice will be reduced from the value of supply. Other side, 15(3)(b). 15.3b is very, very interesting, sir, which talks about discount given after supply is made. So generally discount is given when? Discount is something which is given generally at the time when supply is made, correct, right? Because for example, we go to a shop, let's say we went to Shoppers Stop or Lifestyle, we want to buy one shirt, he told shirt is 1000 rupees, but 40% discount is going on flat. So he reduced 400 and charged only 600. Now GST will come only on 600, correct? But we are talking about a case where discount is given after supply is made. So technically this talks about something known as post supply discount. This is possible, my dear friends, especially in case of wholesaler business where they give targets for sales. They tell that you reach so and so target, so that next month we will give additional discount. Like that they do. That means, for example, when I want to sell some goods to you, I will sell the goods at 1000 rupees only. But I will tell you, if you reach the revenue target or if you reach that sales target of 1000 sales, then I'll give you 200 discount. That is why it is something like post supply discount. And of course, that is the reason why we have got one document called credit note and debit note. Debit note is a document for increasing the value of supply. Credit note is a document for reducing the value of supply. So whenever we want to reduce the value of supply, we give a credit note. Correct? See now. So we're talking about discount given after supply is made. Based on agreement existing at the time of supply. This is very, very important, sir. Based on what, my dear friends? Agreement existing at the time of supply. That means this post supply discount should be mentioned in the agreement itself. Like I gave an example, when I am supplying some goods at 1000 rupees, starting only I am telling, starting only we both have an agreement stating that tomorrow if you reach this sales target, I'll give this discount. So starting only we are fixing this. See now, discount given after supply is made based on agreement existing at the time of supply. And it is linked to the invoice. That means we know that against what invoice we are giving this discount. Very important. Sir, I want to highlight that word called agreement existing at the time of supply. That's very important. And I'll also highlight the word called linked to the invoice. And finally, last special condition, and proportionate credit is reversed by the recipient. Come on, friends, I repeat the language once again. What is that we wrote there? Come on. 15.3a is simple. Discount recorded in the invoice. In that nothing is there. But the whole challenge is all about 15.3b, which says discount given after supply is made. That means supply is done. Then we are giving discount. But starting only agreement is there at the time of supply and it is linked to some invoice. And proportionate credit is reversed by recipient, obviously, because let me give a scenario here. There is a person A, there is a person B. A supplied 1000 quantity at a value of 500 each. Clear? Now, 1000 quantity 500 each means how much it comes to? Come on, speak out. 1000 into 500 is how much, sir? Speak out. It's nothing but 5 lakhs. On 5 lakhs, let's say GST at 18%, which comes to 90,000. This 90,000 is already claimed as input tax credit by Mr. B, assuming that both are registered person. If recipient is registered person, obviously he'll claim input tax credit. This 90,000 he took credit, but subsequently A gave discount at 100 rupees each. So what will happen that, my dear friends, 100 rupees each will come to 1 lakh rupees. For this 1 lakh, Mr. A will give what document? Credit note. Obviously, Mr. A will give credit note. And on this 1 lakh, what is the GST? GST comes to 18%, which comes to 18,000. Correct or not? And obviously, common sense point, we know that already 90,000 credit is enjoyed by Mr. B. Now, this 18,000 should be reversed by Mr. B. For a simple reason and fact, because 15.3b says we are talking about discount given after supply is made based on agreement existing at the time of supply, and it is linked to the invoice. That is linked to the invoice, no doubt about it. And moreover, proportionate credit. What credit? Proportionate credit is reversed by the recipient. That is, the relevant respective input tax credit has been reversed by the recipient. That's in my example on 1 lakh 18% is 18,000. That 18,000 should be reversed by Mr. B. That's it. This is the story of 15.3, which talks about exclusions from transaction value. And I wanted to revise all this once again because it's very important, and this revision will help you out to become more perfect in the concept. And which section deals with value of supply, friends? Section 15. 15.1 says value of supply should always mean transaction value. It refers to price paid or payable when supplier and recipient are not related and the price is sole consideration. 15.2 talks about inclusions to transaction value. 15.3, right in front of you, exclusions from transaction value. 15.4, if transaction value is not acceptable, we'll go to rules. 15.5, in case of certain notified supplies, we'll always go to rules. That's it. That is the story of section 15, value of supply. Done. So I'll come back to you once again very soon with another interesting revision video. That's it in relation to this particular video for section 15 revision. Thank you so much. Take care. Stay home. Stay safe. I'll see you very soon with another interesting revision video. Thank you. Shivateja signing off. Thank you so much. Take care.